Chidi, what are you doing? I love you, Ebuka. I have loved you since we were 7 years old. Chidi!
Stop the wedding. I have something to say. The church fell silent. 300 guests turned to stare at Chidi Okafor as he stood from his seat, his best man's boutonniere trembling against his chest. At the altar, Ebuka Nnamdi, his best friend since they were 7 years old, stood frozen in his white agbada, eyes wide with shock. Chidi's mother gasped. His father's hand moved toward his belt, an old threat from childhood. The bride, Ngozi, beautiful in her coral-beaded gown, looked between them with dawning understanding. Chidi, what are you doing? Ebuka's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried through the church's sound system. What was he doing? Chidi had asked himself that same question every day for the past 3 months, since Ebuka had announced his engagement. Every sleepless night, every prayer for these feelings to disappear, every moment of watching the man he loved plan a life with someone else. I can't let you do this, Chidi said, his voice stronger now. Not without telling the truth. In Nigeria, in Lagos, in this church filled with politicians, business moguls, and society's elite, what he was about to do was career suicide, professional destruction, possibly worse. The Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act carried a 14-year prison sentence. His family would disown him. His medical practice would be destroyed. But watching Ebuka marry someone else felt like death anyway. I love you, Chidi said, the words echoing off cathedral ceilings. I have loved you since we were boys in Enugu. I've loved you through university in London, through every girlfriend you've had, through every moment we've shared. And I know, his voice cracked, I know you love me too. Ebuka's face went ashen. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Someone shouted abomination. The pastor stepped forward, but Ngozi raised her hand, stopping him. Is it true? She asked Ebuka quietly. But in the silent church, everyone heard. Ebuka looked at Chidi, then at his bride, then at the hundreds of witnesses to this moment that would change everything. Yes, whispered. Enugu, 1998. 2 boys sat under a mango tree, sharing stolen pieces of chin-chin. When we grow up, 7-year-old Ebuka declared, we'll live in a big house together, with a swimming pool and a generator that never fails. Chidi laughed, gap-toothed and sun-browned. And servants to bring us suyo whenever we want. We'll be doctors, Ebuka continued. Like my father. Or lawyers. Something important. We'll be together, Chidi said simply. That's what's important. They'd met on Chidi's first day at Corona School, when bigger boys had mocked his Igbo accent. Ebuka, a class prince with his father's diplomatic connections and his mother's striking looks, had taken Chidi's hand and declared him my brother. That was that. Through primary school and secondary school, they were inseparable. Ebuka, bold and charismatic, protecting quiet, brilliant Chidi. Chidi, thoughtful and steady, grounding impulsive Ebuka. Their families joked about their bond. These two, even death cannot separate them. When Ebuka's father was posted to London, he'd fought to bring Chidi along. He's my brother, 14-year-old Ebuka had insisted. We promised to stay together. Both families, wealthy enough to indulge the bond, had agreed. The boys attended Westminster School together, then both got into Imperial College London. Ebuka for business, Chidi for medicine. It was in London, at 21, that everything changed. They'd been celebrating Chidi's acceptance to medical school. Drunk on cheap beer in their shared flat, Ebuka had grabbed him in a hug. And the embrace had lasted too long. When they'd pulled apart, something in the air had shifted. Chidi, Ebuka had whispered, and Chidi had kissed him. For 3 months, they'd lived in secret paradise. But when Ebuka's father had unexpectedly visited, finding them asleep in the same bed, everything shattered. The screaming, the threats, the forced separation. They'd never spoken of it again, until today. The church erupted into chaos. Ebuka's father, Chief Nnamdi, a man who'd built an oil empire through sheer force of will, surged forward with murderous intent. Chidi's father, a retired army general, moved to block him. Women screamed. Men shouted scripture. Ngozi stood at the altar, statue still in her wedding gown, as her world collapsed. Everybody calm down. The pastor's voice boomed through the microphone. This is a house of God. But God seemed absent from the mayhem. Someone shouted police. Security guards moved toward Chidi. He saw Ebuka trying to push through the crowd. But Chief Namdi grabbed his son's arm with crushing force. You will denounce this madness, the chief hissed, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, right now. Ebuka, or you're no son of mine. Ebuka's face was anguished. Chidi knew that look had seen it that terrible morning in London when Ebuka's father had torn them apart. Ebuka had chosen family then, chosen survival, chosen the path of least resistance. He would choose it again, Chidi knew. I'm sorry, Ebuka said. And Chidi's heart shattered. Chidi has been under stress. He's not himself. I don't know why he would say such. Don't, Chidi interrupted, his voice cutting through the noise. Don't you dare stand there and lie, not anymore. I'm done pretending. He turned to the crowd. Yes, I love him. Yes, it's real. And yes, I know what that means here. I know the consequences. His mother was weeping. His father wouldn't meet his eyes. But I'd rather face 14 years in prison living my truth than spend another second living this lie, Chidi continued. Ebuka can make his own choice. He walked down the aisle, past shocked faces, and whispered condemnations. At the church doors, he paused, looking back one last time. Ebuka stood at the altar, torn between the life he was expected to live and the life he wanted. Between duty and desire, between fear and freedom. I'll be at our place, Chidi said quietly, knowing Ebuka would understand. If you want to talk. Then he walked into the Lagos sunlight. Unemployed, disgraced, and strangely free. Ebuka stood at the altar, the weight of 300 pairs of eyes crushing him. Ngozi touched his arm gently. You should go, she whispered. He stared at her. What? Go after him, Ebuka. I always knew. Her eyes glistened with tears. A woman knows when her fiancé's heart belongs to someone else. I thought I could make you love me enough. Ngozi, I do care about you. But not the way you love him. She smiled sadly. I've watched you two together. The way you look at him when you think no one's watching. I convinced myself it was just deep friendship. But deep down, I knew. Chief Namdi's voice boomed. Ebuka, this woman is right here. Waiting. Don't throw away everything for this sickness. Ebuka looked at his father, the man who'd built an empire but ruled through fear. Then at his mother, silent as always, her eyes pleading for conformity. His aunties, uncles, cousins all representing a world that would never accept who he really was. He thought of Chidi. Walking out of this church alone, Chidi, who'd risked everything just to tell the truth. Chidi, who'd loved him faithfully for 14 years without asking for anything in return. I'm sorry, father, Ebuka said, removing his agbada. The white fabric pulled at his feet. I can't do this. If you walk out that door, you are dead to me, Chief Namdi roared. Dead. No inheritance, no family, nothing. Ebuka looked at Ngozi one last time. She nodded, granting him permission to chase his truth. Then I'll build my own life, Ebuka said. He turned to the congregation. I'm sorry for the deception. Ngozi deserves better than a man who could never fully love her. He paused. And I deserve to stop hating myself. He walked down the aisle, his mother's sobs following him. At the door, his younger sister, Dedez, grabbed his hand. I'll always be your sister, she whispered, no matter what father says. Ebuka squeezed her hand gratefully, then stepped into the sunlight, free for the first time in 14 years. Our place was a small flat in Ikoyi that Ebuka had bought years ago ostensibly as an investment property. In reality, it was the one space that had always been just theirs. No family expectations. No societal pressure. Just Chidi and Ebuka. Chidi sat on the balcony overlooking the Lagos Lagoon, still in his best man suit, when he heard the key turn in the lock. His heart stopped. Ebuka stepped through the door, no longer in his wedding finery, just a simple shirt and trousers. His eyes were red-rimmed. They stared at each other across the room. "You came," Chidi whispered. "I always come back to you, even when I shouldn't." Ibuka's voice was raw. "Even when it would be easier not to. Your father cut me off completely. My mother won't speak to me. Half my family thinks I'm possessed." Ibuka laughed bitterly. "My business partners are already distancing themselves. By tomorrow, I'll probably be social poison." "I'm so sorry," Chidi said, standing. "Ibuka, I shouldn't have done that. I was selfish. I destroyed your life." "No." Ibuka crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing Chidi's face between his hands. "You saved my life. I was going to marry that woman, have children, live a lie until it killed me. You had the courage I've never had. I was terrified." "I know. I saw your hands shaking." Ibuka's thumb traced Chidi's cheekbone. "Do you know how long I've wanted to touch you like this, in daylight, without fear?" 14 years of wanting collapsed into this moment. Chidi leaned into the touch, his own hands coming up to cover Ibuka's. "What do we do now?" Chidi asked. "Nigeria isn't safe for us. Your family will come around or they won't. But I'm done living for them." Ibuka rested his forehead against Chidi's. "I have money saved. Investments offshore. We could leave. London, maybe. Or Canada. Run away. Start over," Ibuka corrected. "Together. The way we always planned under that mango tree." Chidi pulled back slightly. "I need to know this is real. That tomorrow you won't regret this and go back." "I've regretted every day I didn't choose you," Ibuka said fiercely. "No more." The video went viral within hours. Someone had filmed Chidi's declaration in church. By evening, it was everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp groups. "Doctor confesses homosexual love at wedding" screamed the headlines. Comment sections filled with vitriol. Chidi's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Scripture verses. Former patients calling him an abomination. The medical council was already discussing revoking his license. Ibuka's tech company issued a statement. "We strongly condemn the immoral behavior of former CEO Ibuka Namdi. He has been removed from all positions effective immediately." "They can't do that," Chidi said, reading the statement. "You built that company. I built it with investors' money. Investors who can't afford to be associated with scandal." Ibuka was surprisingly calm, scrolling through his laptop. "But I still own 40% of the shares. They'll have to buy me out." They were in the Ikoyi flat, curtains drawn, essentially in hiding. Ibuka's phone showed 53 missed calls from his mother. Chidi's father had sent a single text: "You are no longer my son." A knock at the door made them both freeze. "Police," a voice shouted. "Open up." Chidi's blood ran cold. This was it, the 14-year sentence they'd been dreading. But Ibuka was already moving, grabbing to pack bags from the closet. "The fire escape," he whispered. "I prepared for this. You knew they'd come. I hoped we'd have more time, but I planned for the worst." He handed Chidi a passport. "Canadian visa. Already approved. I've been working on this for 3 months. 3 months. But you were engaged." The pounding got louder. "We're coming in." "I was a coward trying to convince myself I could live a lie," Ibuka said, pulling Chidi toward the balcony. "But part of me always knew, always hoped you'd save me from myself." They climbed down the fire escape as police broke through the front door. On the street below, a car waited, a Des at the wheel. "Get in," Ibuka's sister shouted. "Airport. Now." As they sped through Lagos traffic, Chidi looked at Ibuka. "What about our families? Our lives here. Our life is each other," Ibuka said, gripping his hand. "Everything else, we'll rebuild." Chapter 7. The Flight. Murtala Mohammed International Airport was chaos at 11 p.m. Chidi kept his head down, certain every security officer was looking for them. The video had millions of views now. "They were famous for all the wrong reasons. Act natural," Ibuka whispered, though his own hands trembled as he handed over their passports. The immigration officer, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, looked at their documents. Then at them, recognition flickered across her face. Chidi's heart hammered. This was it. They'd be arrested right here, hauled off to prison. Made examples of. The officer's finger hovered over her computer keyboard. One call, and their escape would end. My daughter, she said quietly, not looking up, lives in Canada now. Toronto. She is happy there, with her partner, Sarah. Chidi and Abuka stood frozen. You have 5 minutes before shift change, the woman continued, stamping their passports with deliberate slowness. The new officer. He watches the news. She handed back their documents. Safe travels. Tears pricked Chidi's eyes. Thank you. Thank my daughter, she said. She taught me that love is love, even when it costs everything. They hurried through security, every moment expecting to be stopped. At the gate, Edez hugged them both fiercely. I can't come with you, she said. Someone has to stay and try to fix things with the family. But I'll wire money, help however I can. You're risking everything for us, Abuka said, his voice breaking. You're my brother. That doesn't change. She kissed both their cheeks. Now go. Build that life you always wanted. On the plane. As Lagos's lights disappeared below them, Chidi finally let himself cry. Abuka held his hand across the armrest. Not caring who so, we left everything, Chidi said. We left the lies, Abuka corrected. We're taking what matters, which is each other. Finally, honestly, completely, the plane climbed into the darkness, carrying them toward an uncertain future, but for the first time in 14 years. They were facing it together, without shame. Without hiding. Toronto was 16 hours away. Their new life was just beginning. Toronto in March was brutally cold, nothing like Lagos's relentless heat. Chidi and Abuka huddled in their tiny airbed in Scarborough, eating jollof rice from a Nigerian restaurant they'd found. Watching Canadian news that didn't care about their scandal. We need jobs, Chidi said. Scrolling through medical licensing requirements. My Nigerian credentials won't transfer easily. I'll need to redo exams, complete Canadian residency requirements. It could take years. My tech skills are more portable, Abuka said, but my reputation preceded me. I've sent 40 applications. 3 responses, all rejections citing cultural fit concerns. They'd been in Canada for 2 weeks. Their savings were dwindling. The Nigerian news cycle had moved on to new scandals, but their families remained silent. Abuka's mother had blocked his number. Chidi's father had announced publicly that he had no son. Only Edez stayed in contact, sending brief updates. Father's blood pressure is up. Mother cries daily, but they're stubborn. Give them time. Time felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. Maybe this was a mistake, Chidi said one night, staring at their dwindling bank balance. We could have been more discreet. Found a way to stay in Nigeria, be together in secret. You mean keep lying? Abuka turned to face him. Keep hiding? For how long? Another 14 years, forever. At least we'd have careers, family. Something. We'd have nothing, Abuka said fiercely. We'd be playing pretend until it destroyed us. I tried that, Chidi. I was going to marry Ngozi and hate myself for the rest of my life. Chidi knew he was right, but freedom was harder than he'd imagined, cold and expensive and lonely. Then Abuka's laptop pinged. An email from a startup in Waterloo. We were impressed by your Nigerian tech experience. Interview available. And Chidi's phone rang. A doctor from the Nigerian Canadian Medical Association. I saw your story. It took courage. We help foreign-trained doctors navigate Canadian licensing. Can we talk? Small openings. Tiny lights in the darkness. We'll make it, Abuka said, pulling Chidi close. It won't be easy, but we'll make it. That night, holding each other in their small borrowed room, they began to believe it. September in Toronto was beautiful, the trees turning gold and red. The air crisp with promise. Chidi walked through Ryerson University's campus, heading to his anatomy course. Requalifying as a doctor was harder than medical school had been the first time, but he was determined. Abuka had landed the Waterloo job, a senior developer position, at a promising AI startup. The salary was a fraction of what he'd made in Lagos, but he came home happy, talking excitedly about projects, about colleagues who judged him on his code, not his personal life. They'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Liberty Village, small, expensive by Nigerian standards, but there's no hiding, no shame. Chidi's phone buzzed. A WhatsApp message from an unknown Nigerian number. He almost deleted it. Most messages from home were hateful, but something made him open it. A photo appeared. His mother, thinner than he remembered, standing in front of their family compound. Below it, a message: "Your father won't bend. But I miss my son. Both my sons, you and Ebuka. I'm trying to understand. Call me when you can." Mama Chidi sat on a campus bench, hands shaking. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a crack in the wall. He called Ebuka immediately. She reached out, Chidi said, his voice breaking. "My mother. She wants to talk." Ebuka was quiet for a moment. That's huge, Chidi. What if she wants me to come back? To leave you? Then you tell her the truth, that we're a package deal. But I think she just wants her son back. However she can have you. That evening, Chidi made the call. His mother answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. "Kadu, Wham," she said softly. "How are you, my child?" "I'm okay, Mama. I'm happy." She was silent for a long moment. "Happy is good. Happy is what I want for you." It wasn't everything. She didn't say she accepted them. Didn't say she understood. But it was a start. "Tell Ebuka his mother asks about him," she added before hanging up. "She won't admit it, but she's been asking Ades questions about where you're living, how you're managing." Change was slow, like ice melting in March, but it was happening. The restaurant overlooked Lake Ontario, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Toronto's glittering skyline. Chidi adjusted his tie nervously, checking his watch for the 5th time. "They're coming," Ebuka assured him, squeezing his hand under the table. Ades confirmed they landed an hour ago. 2 years. That's how long it had taken. Chidi had completed his Canadian medical licensing and was now a resident at St. Michael's Hospital. Ebuka's startup had been acquired by a major tech company. He was now a VP with stock options that had made them comfortable again. But more than professional success, they'd built a life. A community of friends, Nigerian expats, LGBTQ activists, colleagues who saw them as just Chidi and Ebuka, not a scandal. They'd joined a church where the pastor welcomed everyone. They'd found home in a place that had once seemed impossibly foreign. The restaurant door opened. Chidi's mother entered first, older and grayer but smiling tentatively. Behind her, Ebuka's mother, elegant and nervous. Ades brought up the rear, grinning. Their fathers hadn't come, maybe never would, but this was something. The mothers approached the table slowly, as if approaching something fragile that might break. "Mama," Chidi said. Standing, she opened her arms, and he fell into them. 14-year-old feelings of rejection melting away. "My son," she whispered, "I've missed you so much." Ebuka's mother hugged her son next, tears streaming down her face. "Your father is stubborn, but I am your mother. I choose my child." They sat. Awkward at first, conversation stilted, but gradually walls came down. The mothers asked about their jobs, their apartment, their lives. Really asked. Really listened. "We brought jollof rice," Ades announced, producing containers, "because we didn't trust Canadian restaurants to make it right." Everyone left, tension breaking. As the evening wore on, Chidi watched their mothers watching them, seeing how Ebuka touched his arm when making a point. How their conversation flowed with the ease of decades. How they were so clearly absolutely meant for each other. "You're happy," Chidi's mother said finally. Not a question, an observation. "Yes, Mama. Very happy." She nodded slowly. "Then I am happy too. It took me too long to understand love is love. And you love each other. That is what matters." Later, as they walked their mothers back to their hotel, Ebuka took Chidi's hand openly on the Toronto streets. No one stared, No one cared, just two men in love, walking in the autumn night. We made it, Chidi whispered. We did, Ibuka agreed, together, just like we promised under that mango tree. Their journey from Enugu to Toronto, from hiding to freedom, from shame to pride, had cost them everything and given them more than they'd imagined. They'd lost their country but found themselves, lost their fathers but kept their mothers, lost their old lives but built something better. They grew up as friends until feelings changed. And those changed feelings had changed everything, for the better. True love requires courage, the courage to be honest, to risk everything, to choose authenticity over comfort. Family doesn't always understand immediately, but love, given time and patience, can bridge even the widest divides. Your truth is worth fighting for, and you deserve to live openly, proudly, and without shame. Kindly subscribe, like, share and comment if you enjoyed this story. See you on our next story.